Okay, well, I've got a calm few moments. I'm going to give you a quick impression of me driving in Dallas traffic. What are you doing? Get out of the way! Hurry up! What are you doing? Oh, stop it! Get it! Move! Hurry! Back! Get it! That's pretty much it. Came to Grove Hill Cemetery in Dallas, Texas today. If I'd known how difficult it was going to be to get here, I might not have done it, but did make it here. Pretty big cemetery. It's nowhere near the size of Lexington Cemetery. Lexington Cemetery has like 16,000 people buried in it, but this is pretty good size. And following the directions I was given, I guess it got me in the general area, but had to do a lot of walking around to figure out where I was going. But the reason I came here today, I had to make a Dallas run on business, and I thought, well, if you're a wrestling fan, maybe even if you're not, especially if you're from the Dallas area, I'm sure you're familiar with the Von Erichs. And Grove Hill Cemetery is where the Von Erichs have been laid to rest. And I've never been to their graves before, so I thought I would come here. This is actually the grave of Jack Atkinson Jr. That's Fritz Von Erich's first son, who died in an accident when he was only. You can see there he was not even quite 7 years old. This is his uncle, his mom's brother that's buried next to him, who died fairly young himself. And I guess Jack Jr. actually died up in New York when they were living up there. I guess they decided to have him buried here. And of course, he died in the 50s. And if we walk over here, just a little farther than I thought. There we go. Move those leaves real quick. It's Fritz and Carrie are here. And of course, if you didn't know, their real last name was Atkinson. And as you may know, just a couple of years ago, Doris, that's Carrie and Kevin, David, Mike's, and Chris's mom, who didn't enter the spotlight very often when they were big in the 80s, but saw her a couple of times, but she mostly stayed in the background. She passed away a couple of years ago. And of course, Fritz and Doris actually divorced a couple of years before Fritz died. I can just imagine the strain that would put on any marriage, losing, well, 4 of their sons. So they're buried a little ways from Jack Jr. Now these were the ones I thought would be hard to find, because the rest of them are all kind of buried together. But they're the ones I can't find. Alright, I feel like a complete idiot now. Been walking all over this cemetery looking for them, and I walked right by them. They weren't just a few steps away from the others. This, of course, Mike Von Erich. He made his debut just not too long before, not too long before David passed away. He committed suicide in 1987. Chris Von Erich committed suicide 4 years later. He did manage to get in the ring for a little while. And of course, the first to go was David Von Erich. Died in Japan in 1984. I don't know how many of you knew it, but right there next to him, that's his daughter. He did have a young daughter. I wasn't sure. She died in 1978. But of course, they didn't make things like that public back then. So I can remember when David died, and of course that was at the height of popularity. I mean, it's odd to think now with all the things they did for a wrestler. They essentially shut down I-35. When I was coming in, I took basically the route that they would have taken with the funeral procession. As they were coming from towards Denton down I-35, the cops would, get ahead of them and close off an exit as they went by. That just wasn't done at the time. I can't even imagine trying to do it now. They actually shut down I-35 for David's funeral procession. And like I say, he's not too far. That's Jack Jr. is over there under that tree with his uncle. And Fritz, Carrie, and Doris are just right over there. Say a few steps away. I walked right by them and didn't even realize it. So I've been walking all over the place out here trying to find them. David was the first one I got to see wrestle live. That was the first live wrestling I ever saw. He was on that card, and him and Kamala were the main event. But the main thing I remember about that was I was only 14 years old, and Kamala, stumbling out of the ring right in front of me. I don't care what you think of wrestling or the legitimacy of it or fake staged, whatever. When you're 14 years old and 140 pounds soaking wet, and a guy the size of Kamala falls out of the ring right in front of you and starts stumbling, it's unpleasant. Of course, I never got to see Mike or Chris. Either one wrestled, but neither one of them really wrestled for that long. Mike was in there for a couple of years, but Chris had so many health problems that he just couldn't physically do it, really. And I'll show you just how close they were. I was walking around the cemetery looking for them all over the place, but they're right here. Of course, Carrie was really popular. A friend of mine still talks about the day she actually reached out and she just touched him, took her finger and touched his arm. And Doris Von Erich, of course, I never met her, obviously. But, boy, that had to be a strong woman. And of course, Kevin, he's still kicking, doing well. His son's a traveling around. I've been pretty big in Japan, and actually saw Ross and Marshall in Sherman. And of course, Carrie's daughter Lacey, she wrestled for a while. But out of them, as far as the ones I met personally, I did meet Kevin and Carrie. Saw David wrestle, but didn't really meet him. But you know, they just seem like genuinely good people. And like I say, if you were anywhere around Dallas in the 80s, and then you do have a clue as to just how popular, how big they really were. I mean, they were rock stars. But like I say, I had never been here before. Always wanted to come. After I was almost here, I realized maybe I should have brought something to put on the graves. I do have a little bit of change, and as I'm just going to go ahead and there is not exactly sure what that. I know it's something. putting coins on the grave or on the headstone. See how much change I've got, and I'm going to put one on each one. I guess it really doesn't matter what the coin is, because the monetary value isn't important. So I'll have to look that up, the exact meaning behind what putting the coins on the grave means. I'm going to have to get high dollar here. Put a quarter down. Like I say, as far as the monetary value, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The odd thing is, when I went to New Mexico last year, went to Billy the Kid's grave, and a lot of people had even put coins on his grave. Well, if you're listening, thank you for all the entertainment over the years and the sacrifices you made. I know some of you are maybe happier now. At least you're all together. One of those days today that oh, Dave. Hang on. Okay. Put a nickel one. Dave, I didn't want to leave Dave out. Uncle David. I guess that would have been Doris's brother. This really is a beautiful cemetery. It's big. I don't mean to try and get comedic, but I do feel the need to tell you the guy that I was getting the directions from was using things like, you know, landmarks like it's a big tree and hedges. There are big trees and hedges all over. Well, look at the size of that tree. They're all over the place. And then, given some of the names around them, he rattles off Smith. Well, could you not find a more common name? But I'm glad I finally did this. Like I say, it's something I've thought about doing for a long time. And before I go, I think I'll go ahead and take a look around a little bit. Jack, who knows? Fritz von Erich Jr. might have been the greatest one of them all. I was actually going to take a look around, show you some of the bigger headstones, but there is actually a funeral showing up just right down from me. And from the looks of it, there's another one coming here in a little bit, so I think just out of respect for them, I'm going to back off. But yeah, if you've ever, like I say, it's just coming here is just something I always wanted to come here and pay my respects, and I'm glad I finally did it.